All right, this is Stolen Children by Peg Carrot. I like to read this at the end of the year. We're starting a little bit later than I usually do, so I don't know that we're going to finish it. It's kind of creepy. It's about kidnapped kids, so I mean, yeah.
Okay, Adrian, do you think kidnapping is good?
No, that makes for a good story, though.
Yeah, she thinks kidnapping is
Day 1. Chapter 1. Amy's babysitting course taught her basic first aid, bedtime tips, and how to change a diaper. But it did not cover what to do if 2 thugs with a gun showed up. She had to figure that out by herself. The trouble started with a phone call on a Monday late in June. "Is this Amy Norland?" a woman asked. "Yes." "This is Elise Edgerton. I got your name from Mrs. Montag at the community center. She said you've completed the babysitting class." "That's right." The name meant nothing to Amy. Later, she would learn that the Edgerton family owned a tugboat company, a custom sailboat company, and many acres of prime waterfront property, including the Raven Building, a high-rise of luxury apartments overlooking Puget Sound, with upscale boutiques on the ground level. They also owned a resort hotel in Hawaii. "Mrs. Montag told me you were 14, Mrs. Edgerton said. "Is that correct?" "Yes." "I don't usually hire anyone that young, but I'm in a bit of a bind. My mother just fell and broke her leg. I need to go to the hospital, and I don't have anyone to watch my daughter Kendra. I don't want to take a 3-year-old with me to the emergency room. Could you come right now and stay with her for about 4 hours? I can pick you up. I need to call my mom first to be sure it's okay." "While you do that, do you have any references I can check?" Amy gave the names of the only 2 people who had hired her so far. Mrs. Edgerton said that she'd call back after she had talked with them. Amy's mom was in a meeting, so Amy called Mrs. Montag to be sure she had given Amy's name to Mrs. Edgerton. "Oh, yes, dear," Mrs. Montag said. "I hope you can help her out. You're lucky to get such a job." When Mrs. Edgerton called back, Amy said she could come. She left a message on her mom's voicemail, giving Mrs. Edgerton's phone number. She changed into clean jeans, combed her hair, and put a monkey hand puppet into her purse. 10 minutes later, a silver sedan pulled up in front of her house, and Amy ran out to meet her new employer. Mrs. Edgerton was pleasant, elegant, and clearly worried about her mother. Kendra, a dimpled toddler in yellow overalls, was strapped into a car seat in the back seat. "Hi, Kendra," Amy said. The little girl gave her a drooly grin and continued to play with a grubby-looking stuffed cat. "I like your cat," Amy said. "What's your cat's name?" "Tubby," Kendra said. "This be Tubby." "Hi, Tubby," Amy said. "I'm sorry this is such a short notice," Mrs. Edgerton said. "Usually my nanny would be with Kendra, but Daryl got invited on an impromptu trip, so I gave her this week off, and I took vacation time. Kendra's had lunch, and it's almost time for her nap. Her schedule is posted on the fridge. I keep that up to date. There's a list of phone numbers you might need, including my cell phone. My husband's out of town, so I'm the only contact today. But I'm sure you won't need anything." She glanced in the rearview mirror. "Kendra's a sweetheart. She won't give you any grief." The car pulled into a circular driveway and stopped before an impressive brick house. While Amy admired the manicured lawn and lush flower beds, Mrs. Edgerton took Kendra out of the car seat. As soon as they were inside, Mrs. Edgerton said, "I hate to just dump you like this, but I have to rush. Be a good girl, Kendra. Amy's going to play with you and give you some ice cream." She gave her daughter a quick hug, thanked Amy for being there, and promised to be home by 6 o'clock. A trace of expensive perfume lingered in the air after she left. "Ice cream?" Kendra said, heading toward the kitchen. "Sounds good to me," Amy said. She opened the freezer compartment above the refrigerator and saw 6 pints of Ben & Jerry's finest. Amy's mom brought the store brands on sale. Amy liked this job already. "What kind do you want?" she asked. "Vanilla, strawberry?" "Chocolate chip cookie dough," said Kendra. "Tubby want chocolate chip cookie dough." Amy found bowls and spoons and sat down to enjoy the treat. While they ate, Kendra pretended to feed ice cream to the toy cat, and Amy read through the instructions that were on the fridge. No surprises there. After they ate the ice cream, Amy took Kendra to her bedroom for her nap, making sure Kendra used the bathroom first, as directed. "Blinky," said Kendra, reaching for a faded blue blanket that was folded at the foot of the bed. Amy covered her with a blue blanket, then read 2 stories aloud. Tubby, go night-night, Kendra said as she made sure her stuffed cat was also under the blanket. Then she stuck her thumb in her mouth, closed her eyes, and quickly fell asleep. What an angel, Amy thought. Mrs. Montag was right. Amy was lucky to have this assignment. Maybe if she did a really good job, she'd be asked to come again. Amy desperately wanted to show that she was trustworthy, even though it was too late to prove it to her dad. She needed to prove it to herself. As always, thinking about her dad brought tears to Amy's eyes. She wanted to forget that horrible conversation with him, but no matter how hard she tried to ignore the memory, it stayed with her. Whenever she thought about it, she felt shriveled, like an orange left too long in the fridge. Why hadn't she admitted her error and apologized? Why had she been so stubborn and defensive? Most of all, why hadn't she told Dad and Mom what had happened right away, instead of staying silent and hoping they wouldn't find out? The problem had been completely her fault. She had agreed to feed the next-door neighbor's golden retriever Lucky and take him for a walk because Mr. Prendel, who lived alone, had to go straight from work to a meeting that night and wouldn't be home until midnight. Amy had taken care of Lucky many times before. She knew where Mr. Prendel hid a house key and where Lucky's food and leash were kept. Whenever Mr. Prendel couldn't get home on time, he called Amy and she fed and exercised Lucky. Usually, Amy stayed a while and played with Lucky or brushed him. She couldn't have a pet of her own because her mom was allergic to animal fur, so it was a treat for Amy to visit Lucky, and Mr. Prendel always left $5 on the counter for her. That last time, Mr. Prendel had called on a Tuesday evening and asked Amy to come on Wednesday. She had agreed. He called again on Thursday. What happened last night? He asked. Your money was still here, and Lucky acted hungry when I got home. As soon as she heard his voice, Amy realized what she had done. She said, Oh, Mr. Prendel, I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. Was Lucky okay? It didn't hurt him to wait for his dinner, but there was a big wet spot on the carpet next to the back door. Amy felt sick. I had planned to come as soon as I got home from gymnastics, she said, but my aunt and uncle from Texas stopped in unexpectedly. They were in town on a business trip and decided to surprise us, and then we all went out for dinner, and when we got back, my dad showed some home videos, and I simply forgot about Lucky. I am so sorry. She closed her eyes, not wanting to think about Lucky waiting by the door to be let out. Mr. Prendel was nice about it, but Amy felt terrible. How could she have done such a thing? Poor Lucky. Next time Mr. Prendel asked her to dog sit, she would write herself a note. If there ever was a next time, Amy wouldn't blame Mr. Prendel if he found someone else to take care of Lucky. She knew she should tell her parents what had happened, but she was ashamed that she'd forgotten Lucky, and she didn't want anyone to know, so she said nothing to them. That turned out to be an even bigger mistake than forgetting to take care of Lucky, because Mr. Prendel happened to see Amy's dad out by the mailboxes a few days later. Mr. Norland had been leaving for work, but he stormed back inside to confront Amy. I just talked to Tim Prendel, he said. I understand you let him and Lucky down. It was one of those days when Amy felt as if she couldn't do anything right. 20 minutes earlier, Mom had snapped at her because Amy had neglected to unload the dishwasher the night before. Amy had meant to, but she had a report due, and by the time she finished her homework, she forgot about the dishes. That morning, Mom was rushing around getting ready for work, and when she opened the dishwasher to put her cereal bowl and found it full of clean dishes, she acted as if it were a federal crime to forget a chore. Amy already felt inept this morning, and it was only 7 o'clock. Now her dad stood beside her, looking furious. Amy stared silently at her toast. Why didn't you tell us what had happened? He asked. We would have offered to have Mr. Prendel's carpet cleaned. It had not occurred to her that her parents could help make up for her blunder. I can't believe you are so irresponsible, her dad went on. When you say you will pet sit, you are agreeing to care for a living creature. Lucky is Mr. Prendel's best friend. He trusts you to be sure Lucky is fed and comfortable. Instead, you let Lucky go hungry and made him wait to go to the bathroom until he couldn't hold it any longer and had to wet on the rug, which he knew he shouldn't do. I told Mr. Prendel I was sorry, Amy said. I would hope so, but saying you're sorry is not enough. You should have offered to take Lucky for a walk every day for a month, or told Mr. Prendel that the next 5 pet sitting jobs were free. You can't just be sorry for your mistakes. You have to take action to make amends. What if Mr. Prendel had been gone overnight, as he sometimes is? Amy knew her dad was right, but she was afraid if she admitted it, she'd burst into tears and end up going to school with red eyes and splotchy skin. So instead of acknowledging her error and apologizing, she mumbled, Everybody makes mistakes. You aren't perfect. No, I'm not, he said. But when I say I'll do something, I keep my word. I'm ashamed of you. He turned then, went out to his car, and drove off. 3 hours later, in the middle of a spelling test, Amy was called to the principal's office. Wondering what else she had done wrong, Amy entered the office. Her mom was waiting for her there. Amy could tell from the look on her mom's face that something bad had happened. Your dad had an accident on his way to work, Mom said. Her voice choked with tears. A speeding driver ran a red light, hit Dad's car broadside, and he's gone. Just like that, her dad was gone.